Okay, so we should be ready to go. So good afternoon and welcome to everyone, to all members and guests to this special combined session of SBE Chapter 17 from Minneapolis, St. Paul area and from Chapter 30 of the South Bend area. My name is Leon Amstutz and I'm the Vice Chair of Chapter 30. And I'm your host for this virtual tour of SonSet Solutions located in Elkhart, Indiana. And you can see our building in the background. And you'll hear more about SonSet Solutions in a few minutes. But first of all, I also want to introduce to you Trevor Schwarze, the Vice Chair of Chapter 17. And Trevor will wrap up our session after the tour, have a few more words to say. I want to ask everyone who's attending this virtual meeting to please be sure to respond to your local chapter officers with your full name, membership status and ID, and your certification status and your company, so that we can turn the attendance records into the SBE National Office so that you can get your attendance credits for certification and other purposes. And probably the easiest way to do that is just to reply to your invitation that notified you of this meeting. And speaking of certification, just a reminder that the deadline for the August summer of 2022 August exam sessions is coming up in June 10th. That's about 3 weeks or so away. So be sure to contact your chapter certification chairman if you are interested in taking an exam for new or recertification purposes. And also, if you have not renewed your SBE membership this spring, be sure to do it as soon as possible during the grace period. And then finally, notice for those of you from Chapter 30, I need to remind you that we typically take a summer break. So this will be our last meeting until next September, unless something special comes up, we notify you otherwise. So be taking a few months break over the summer. So at this point, as I mentioned, we are located at SonSet Solutions in Elkhart, Indiana. And I want to introduce to you my colleague, Mr. Doug Weber, who is our connections team leader. Doug previously served as an engineer at the huge HCJB shortwave radio site near Quito, Ecuador. And our videographer for today is Mr. Jack Kinney, a radio tech who currently heads our media center. So Doug will be the host of our tour today. And so we'll send it away to Doug. Go ahead, Doug and Jack.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Doug, as Leon said, and I'm gonna take you on this little virtual tour through our facility here at SonSet Solutions. For those of you who don't know much about us, we actually started, well, we trace our history back to 1986 when a team of engineers came together in this building to build some large shortwave transmitters for a number of different organizations, Transworld Radio, HCJB at the time, and was part of an initiative from several large shortwave Christian broadcasters to reach the unreached people groups of the world with the gospel. That is to tell people about Jesus, and especially to those places that hadn't heard, the people groups that hadn't heard before. So we trace our history way back to 1986 when that team of engineers originally came together. But then in 2015, we changed our name from the HCJB Global Technology Center to SonSet Solutions. And we're standing here in front of our electronics lab, which is dedicated to Herbert P. Jacobson. He was one of our lead designers for many, many years, helped even on those shortwave transmitters back in 1986. And even before that, he was developing shortwave transmitters with us here at SonSet Solutions. We're not a large team. We have about 40 people on staff here. About half of those are retired people, mostly engineers, that come and volunteer their time with us. And so some of them come full time, 40 hours a week. Some of them are only here a few weeks out of the year, and they bring their expertise with them when they come. The other half of our team are supported staff, which means that they raise their own support to come and join us. We are a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit, religious nonprofit. So we have a lot of people that have to come and raise their own support. So about half the staff is volunteer and about half the staff are what we would consider regular supported staff. So we do basically develop technology in 3 different areas. One is, of course, radio broadcast equipment, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll meet some people that work on that. We also do some community development things, and we'll introduce you to Cody and some of the things we're doing in community development. And then we also do some power solutions things, and we'll talk to some people about that. Mike Tapia will join us virtually as well and introduce you to power solutions. And then we'll talk to Harold about some other solutions that we're working on as well. So, you're gonna see a lot about. We're gonna talk a lot about the technology. You're gonna see a lot of technology today as we walk around part of our building here. But we're not really here because of the technology. We're not here just because we're engineers and we enjoy making cool technology. We're really here because we're interested in helping people hear about Jesus. So we're a Christian nonprofit, and so we only work with organizations that have that as their focus. So even in our community development area, we're interested in working with people who use community development tools like clean water as a means for planning churches and starting churches, telling people about Jesus. So that's our focus. That's what really drives us, is telling people about Jesus. All right. So I think we'll head on into the lab here and we'll begin to get introduced to some of the team. This is our electronics lab. You can see some of the technology here that we have, some of the test equipment we have here. We're going to walk right over here and introduce you to Mike Axman. He's one of our lead engineers here. Mike, what do you have here in front of us?
This is a tropical band shortwave transmitter. Tropical bands, for those of you who don't know, are the lower frequency shortwave bands. A difference being that the higher frequency shortwaves are used for long range broadcasts. This is for more regional broadcast to fill in those places where it's not practical to use FM transmitters, but where we can cover a region out, maybe 200-300 miles out. And we have a number of these in Africa, for instance, South America, Papua New Guinea, Australia. And
so why would someone want to use this transmitter versus an FM transmitter?
well, the FM transmitter, as we know, is basically a line of sight.
Okay.
And for instance, one of these is in serving an area in Peru, in the Amazon jungle region there, about a 500-mile radius, and tribes scattered throughout the jungle there, and it's just not possible to put in FM stations there. There's places where it's very mountainous, and there's small tribes around. On the tropical band, we shoot the signal straight up, called NVIS, near vertical incident skywave, where the well, as the name implies, near vertical. We shoot the signal straight up, and it does a good job. Actually, though, one of these is in Ecuador, broadcasting in Quechua English language there, and in Spanish. And that station, early in the morning, we can hear It's kind of weak down in the noise, but we can hear it here in Elkhart.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
It escapes the the intended region with multiple halt hops, but these do a good job. This particular transmitter has the audio processing and all built in. So the idea is that this can fit in a large suitcase and the power supply in another suitcase. So with a program source, audio input, power source, and antenna, uh, you're on the air.
Wow. And because that signal's coming down from the sky, because you bounced it off the ionosphere, we don't have to worry about physical obstacles blocking the signal. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Noises are basic.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah.
Right.
And
6 inches on
Oh. Okay, okay. All right. So this is great. Thanks, Mike. I think we're gonna wander over here and learn about some other transmitters. Okay, we're talking about shortwave transmitters there. We're gonna move over here and talk to another one of our engineers, Alan Good. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good
Now
to
you
see-
have something different here.
Right. This is our FM line of transmitters, and these were developed because we had partners that wanted to do FM in their own country and minister to
Mhm.
people in their own language. And so engineers here developed a suitcase size transmitter in the FM band. And one of the unique things about the design on this one was it had a built-in audio processor. So they didn't need external equipment. They just put in an audio source and hook it up to an antenna and they're on the air.
Wow, that's great. So I see we got a couple different models here. This says Crown Broadcast. Why do we use Crown Broadcast transmitters?
Well, Crown was the manufacturer of these transmitters. We designed them here at SonSet, but Crown took the design and made it a unit for production to sell not only internationally like we do, but for people in the US. And it's a very popular transmitter. There's transmitters of this that have been in the air for over 20, 30 years, I think.
Wow.
So they have transmitters ranging from wattage from 30 watts all the way up to 600 watts. And we call that the Crown Classic design line of
Uh-huh.
transmitters. And then some years ago, they partnered with a French company, Ecresso, or Worldcast, who makes an Ecresso line of transmitters. And so we sell those as well. And that's the newer line that is over here on the table. And this actually came back from Africa for repair.
Oh.
So not only do we sell new transmitters, but we service what we sell.
Uh-huh.
So the partners will send them back and we repair them here
Ah.
and send them back. Currently, we have a transmitter waiting to go back to Samoa.
Uh-huh.
And we've had transmitters recently down in Belize that we repaired and Africa. And as most of the guys know, the two biggest problems facing equipment is lightning and power.
Mm-hmm.
And we often get lightning damage and we get power issues. And so they come back here and we service them.
All right. So do we only are we only providing transmitters to people, or are there other things for a radio station?
Oh yeah, there's we supply anything they need for studio equipment, mixers, microphones, adapters, interfaces for phone systems, but we also supply antenna systems and power protection units that try to protect the equipment from bad power. So we do everything from the microphone to the antenna.
That's great. Okay, so people can call us and say, hey, I need a radio station and I don't know anything about radio, and we can help them out. Is that what you're saying?
That's what we're saying, and we have the expertise here to get them lined up with what they need, what will work well in their situation, and often people want more power than they actually need. So we have a set of software that we can run plots on the coverage area that they're trying to reach and identify how much power, what type of antenna they need.
Mhm.
So we do full service here.
That's great.
Not only do we service here,
Uh,
but we travel internationally too to help
Okay.
our partners in the field.
so where have you been? What can you tell us about a partner?
Yeah, well, biggest partner I helped was our friends in Papua New Guinea, and A lot of the folks in country don't have the technical expertise. They want to do radio. They have a desire to share the gospel with their country, but they don't know anything about it. So we'll go over and we'll set it up with them. And if they do have somebody locally we can train, we'll train them so they can maintain it. But if they have problems, they can always contact us. And with the internet now, I can Skype with people. I have a video conference, and we can identify the problem and try to get it resolved.
All right. That sounds great, Alan. Thanks for sharing about our FM transmitters and the FM stations that we're putting in all over the world. I think we usually tell people that we've started over 500 Christian radio stations around the world, and that's only because we lost count several years ago. We know it's over 500, but hard to keep track.
That is, and we just appreciate the folks that are attempting to do radio because they have the same desire we do, get the gospel out. And but with technical equipment, you're going to have problems, and we want to be here to resolve them for 'em.
That's great. All right. Thank you, Alan.
All right.
We're going to walk around this way and head down this direction. We've talked about shortwave transmitters now, and we talked about FM transmitters. Going to turn around here and we're going to talk to Wayne Huda, and he's going to tell us a little bit about some of our antenna systems, right, Wayne?
Right. You have the best transmitter and best studio in the world, but if you don't have a good antenna, people are not going to hear you. So about 25 years ago now, our engineers designed a dipole antenna, vertical polarized, and we're probably have sent out over 600 of those antennas. Now this is a display model, and it's frequency agile. The tubes slide up and down according to the frequency. We have a chart in, that the partner overseas can look at and adjust the antenna to that frequency on the chart.
So why would the partner need to adjust the frequency on their antenna?
Well, every station is usually assigned a frequency by the government, and very seldom do they ever change. But even to start out with, you need the adjusting to get it on the right frequency. And if it doesn't fall perfectly with the chart, then you can adjust it in the field. Generally, we provide this in a 4-bay configuration mounted on the side of a tower. We have set out single bays and 2 bays, but most of it is a 4-bay signal coming up from the transmitter, divided in a combiner, and then goes out to the 4 bays. The antenna, this is a combiner here. It's what the inside of it looks like. It matches the 50 ohm coax coming up in the transmitter, and then it's divided up to the 4 bays of the antenna. This is the covering that is mounted on the side of the tower. That can be handle over up to 2,000 watts. And then we have one that's lower power up to 700, 800 watts. That's generally, most of them get the lower power combiner.
All right. So there's something else unique about our antennas, and that is that they come apart. Why would we take them apart, and how do they come apart?
Well, in some cases, the easiest way to get an antenna overseas is to put it in a suitcase. And our antennas come apart, or they go together or come apart.
Well, we hope they do both. Come apart and then go back together.
There's a group of engineers that came from Southeast Asia, some of our missionaries, and came for training. When they're going back, they don't want to go back empty-handed. So you can see all the suitcases with antennas and transmitters. And
Right. So they took all that equipment back with them to Southeast Asia, and then they just had a stock of it there that they could distribute without having to come back to us and get it directly and get it shipped. So,
the other antenna we have is a vertical, double 5/8. That is adjustable as well. Not as high a gain as the 4 bays, but much more convenient to mount on the top of a building. And We
Good.
manufacture that in our shop. It comes apart, and we can adjust it. And we even make our own adjusting wrench here. So we try to make everything we can.
All right. So yes, so this antenna as well, the dipole as well as the monopole are both manufactured in our own machine shop, right?
And they're sent out to a local company that nickel plates them, to make them weather resistant.
Right. And what we make these is basically, I understand, out of just common copper pipe that you would put in your house, but we stretch it and bend it and torsion it and create an antenna out of it, right? And then we nickel plate it.
They've gone through thousands of feet of copper pipe, turn them into antennas, broadcast the gospel. Not water running through the pipe, the gospel, the message being distributed through that antenna.
That's great. Yeah, we talk about often, we talk about when we get to community development, we talk about the clean water that community development provides, and but it's the living water that we really want to tell people about. Jesus called himself the living water. And so that's a good analogy with the copper pipe. I hadn't even thought of that. That was good. All right. Anything else?
Um, We've sent out these elements. We've distributed in different configuration over 2,000 elements over the 25 years. And they're all over the world, from Asia to South Pacific to South America to Africa, Europe, and few in Canada and some in the United States. So we are reaching out to a significant part of the world.
That's great. Yeah, and I enjoy about every year, the shop ends up manufacturing a whole bunch of these dipole antennas, and it's fun to watch them out there doing the process. I just get fascinated standing out there watching them make all of this stuff out there. So
Quite skilled at doing it.
they are. Yep. All right, Wayne. Thank you very much.
Thanks for stopping.
All right. Our next stop is around the corner here. Can I go back to where we were with the transmitters? So you heard we've been talking about broadcast equipment. And so you kind of heard that we do everything pretty much from studios to the antenna, except for the towers. Of course, we don't put up the towers. But we also don't just do things on the broadcast side. We also do some things on the receiver side. And I'm going to talk to Leon here. You've already met Leon. So Leon, tell us about what you've got there in your hand.
I'm holding a small solar powered fixed tune transistor radio that we call the SonSet, SonSet. And sort of a play on names because it has the solar panel so that it can operate from the sun as well as the rechargeable battery. And this receiver was developed right here at SonSet Solutions to go along with the transmitters that we produce. And the unique feature that it has is that the lanyard is also the antenna cord. And so it's able to receive FM, AM, and shortwave bands. And so we have these manufactured. We designed it here, and Mike that you talked to earlier had a large part in the design, but the factory in China then assembles the printed circuit boards for us. They come here. We do a quality control testing of every radio to make sure that when it gets out in the middle of Africa or somewhere that it works okay. And so that's what my wife Ann is doing right now. She is putting the radios in a test fixture that is fed by a signal generator. And we loose couple the signal into the antenna, put a screen cage around it. This is our RFI shielding. And then we have a computer software program, and she checks the audio left and right channels to make sure that they're both present and that they're in phase. And then we test different frequencies at the low and high end of the AM band, as well as shortwave and FM. And we check this receiver sensitivity using a SYNAD meter. So that's what you saw her checking. So after it passes that test, we charge the batteries. We also have some light fixtures built in. She's not doing it right now, but we can illuminate the solar panel to make sure it's connected and is capable of powering the radio. And then we typically invite teams from local churches or sometimes school groups to come in. And these work teams do the final assembly test of the radios and then pack them up in boxes ready to be shipped. And so before we do that, every radio has to be programmed for the specific partner where it's going. So for instance, if this radio were to be sent to South Sudan, which we have a bunch of radios that we're just finishing, we would find the frequencies of the partner right there and program them into the radio. And this radio is able to have 9 different channels. We typically only put 1 or 2, but they are prefixed channels so that they only tune into the local partner station. They don't use them to listen to the government station or some commercial station. So they're only tuned into the gospel radio station in that area. And then they can turn them on. A very simple. This is one of the local Spanish stations. And these radios will operate about 2 hours for every hour that they're charged. So if they're in the sun for 4 hours, they'll basically run another 8 hours or so.
So they have a battery inside them.
They have a small rechargeable battery in.
Yep.
So again, every radio is tested and then packed up so that when it gets there, we're sure that it's going to work properly. Because you can imagine they can't just go to their local store and exchange it if something goes bad. So that's why we go through multiple stages of quality control on these.
So why would we need to supply people with radios? Don't people just have radios?
Most of the people in these countries do not have radios. Some of the countries now are starting to see people with cell phones with FM chip and activated. Here in the US, the cellular companies tend to disable the phone chip. So some people might be able to listen to it on the FM, but these radios are much more sensitive. Plus, as I said, they cover shortwave and AM bands, which cell phones do not. So some of the stations that are using the near shortwave frequencies or AM even to cover a whole country, these are very popular radios. And research from our partners tells us that for every radio that's out there, typically 10 people are listening to it once. And I personally have seen this when we lived in Haiti. They'll have it playing outside of a hut and the family that lives there will be listening and the neighbors surrounding it. So these multiply the number of listeners that can hear this.
That's great. And a lot of these radios go into very remote locations. They go into, like, we've got thousands that are in the Amazon rainforest. We've got radios that are in some of the largest refugee camps in Africa, and they don't have any money to buy radios. And we're sending more even this year to refugee camps. Papua New Guinea, I heard Alan talk about Papua New Guinea. A lot of SonSet radios there. So we send these radios all over the place. We've gone through several different models over the years. We keep doing improvements on the radios, but I believe we are now just over or just about at 80,000 radios that we've distributed around the world to different partners. And we send them to the radio station and then they distribute the radios to their listeners or their potential listeners, people they want to, would like to have them start listening. So, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Ann and Leon. We appreciate it. All right, we're going to move on here. So that's a lot of stuff about our broadcast ministries. We're going to move out of the electronics lab now and into our shipping area. This is the area where all of our equipment goes out and goes to different partners. And we can see here, we just talked about some of the antennas and how they can disassemble and be put into a suitcase. We can also put them into a box like this. So there's 4 dipoles in there. And these antennas are all going to a partner in Haiti. And then if we move over here, these large shipping boxes over here, this is all radio equipment going to a station in Micronesia. And so there's some big circular polarized antenna elements in here, which is why we need 2 big boxes. But this is essentially a complete radio station here. Studio equipment, transmitter, antenna system as well, and all the cabling that goes with all of that. So we often have these big shipping containers in here as equipment gets ready, as we get the equipment ready to send to a partner somewhere. So.
Question about whether we have any involvement with refugee camps in Ukraine.
We do not yet. However, we have just, we're beginning to, there was a question about whether we are working with any refugee camps in Ukraine. The answer is no, but we are starting to get connected with some ministries that are beginning to do that. So we've just gotten, we're in contact with a ministry that wants to take some of our SonSet radios into Ukraine. And so we're just in the preliminary stages of working with them. That will probably be one of those next orders of radios that Ann and Leon will work on, and Sarah will work on to get ready to ship to Ukraine. So we'll program in just the frequencies of that local Christian broadcaster. Actually, he's an international broadcaster as well. So they'll have 5 or 6 frequencies of Christian programming that they can listen to there in Ukraine. So a good question. All right, let's walk through the shipping area here. All right, I'm going to stop right here and right here at our not an FM, AM transmitter, and talk a little bit about the fact that we don't just use our own equipment. We will also work with other people's equipment from time to time. And this is obviously a Harris DX10 transmitter that we have in the building here. We're prepping this for a ministry in Haiti. And so we will work on other people's equipment as well, other manufacturers besides Crown. And we don't do a lot of AM transmitters, but we do some AM transmitters from time to time. And then of course we do shortwave transmitters. And then you heard Alan talking about the FM transmitters. So just wanted to show you this since it was sitting here on our factory floor. Okay, so we're going to pivot here a little bit and talk with Cody Hall and and Jeff Benedict. This is a little bit of a shift now. We're going to go from broadcast systems to our community development area, and Cody is the team leader for our community development area. Cody, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're doing in community development?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. So what we do is we work with gospel-focused nonprofits, just like on the broadcast side, but these groups are focused on advancing the gospel in communities through community development efforts. One of the big pushes that ministries have that we've seen is clean water. And so water is obviously a huge need, and it's something that is a tool that they can provide for and then make inroads into a community, start relationships, form a water committee, install a pump, and instantly trust is formed. And then it's on that trust they're able to build, establish those relationships, plant a church. We have several partners who send in a church planting pastor after the well has been operational for a few months. There's that trust. They send in the pastor, plants a church. It's very organic. I've been in these churches myself. They more often than not do not have roofs. They're under big trees,
Wow.
and there's people there and they worship God. And it's all really started with the clean water. So
how do we get started in this?
Yeah. Well, the one partner that we're about to show you some solutions that we've done for them, they came to us and said, hey, we would love to be able to remotely monitor our pumps because we don't know if they're broken. They're very remote. These are areas that are tough to access. So rather than deploying resources and diesel fuel is expensive, and even in Civil War times, these are very dangerous. We've had groups in the Central African Republic have vehicles hijacked, staff members shot. So if they can, remotely monitor the pumps, they can see how many minutes of usage has my pump had today, how many gallons have been pumped, what was the chlorine level in my, purification system. There are a lot of metrics we can give them remotely.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the solutions we wanted to show you, this one little compact device. It's called SonSet Link. It's the entire platform. So it's the hardware on the edge device that mounts on a pump. But it's also the whole back end, the data processing, the satellite or cellular transmission method, and then the processing of it. Automated notifications where they get text messages, where they can interact with the data on the mobile app, all these things. So recently we found a way to improve our rotation sensing algorithm. This is, I'll show you this test stand here. This pump here, Jeff's put this together, this test stand with the help from several other guys here. And this is a rotational pump. So this is the life pump gearbox. It's a very deep well hand pump, and it's better than any other hand pump that we can find. These pumps, I was able to install 2 of the earlier ones in 2013 in Eastern Africa, in Malawi. They went back 5 years later, and these pumps had not had a single day of downtime. No maintenance required. It's just unheard of for a hand pump. So what it does is it rotates, and it has an Archimedes screw, a progressive cavity pump down in the bottom, 100+ meters down. So we're talking very, very deep. And our device, our monitor here, senses the rotation of that drive rod. Well, we found a way to improve the reading of the rotations to eliminate some spurious double hits. So as the magnet passes, it closes our reed switch circuits. We were seeing sometimes double hits, and so you'd be over reporting your usage. Well, we fixed it with a more intelligent algorithm that senses and eliminates those double hits, removes them from the count. So this test, Jeff, you can run one for us. We've just finished about 2 weeks of testing.
We've got a stepper motor back here that we can put the however many rotations on the shaft we want. We've got a counter here, our handle RPM, Hall effect sensor right there. So let me fire it up here. So here's your actual rotations right here, the counter. Here's the RPM. The pump shaft is down here, the magnet housing down here. It's got our stepper motor driving the assembly right through here. So it just runs up to the set number of rotations that we want, and then it stops.
So this gives us a way to verify the actual mechanical rotations of that shaft, and then check that, confirm against the actual transmitted count. So take it outside, send the data message, see what came back.
So what are you actually measuring on these monitors, with these monitors?
Yeah, well, we're measuring the rotations of the shaft,
Yeah.
and we also measure the time in use. And because of the life pump's design, you can actually correlate the rotations with volume pumped. It's a very consistent output given how many rotations. So we would expect around, I think it's like 120 rotations for 20 liters. So
All right.
takes about a minute or so to pump 20 liters.
This right here is our satellite modem right there. That's how we get all the data to the internet through this little box right here. That puts all the data on the internet. You can pull it up on anywhere you've got internet access.
So how are you transmitting that data in real time, or is it stored, or what?
Yeah, it's once a day,
How
transmitted.
do you store it?
Well, we have our entire back end. That's the back end of SonSet Link.
No, before you transmit, if you're only transmitting once a day, where's the information?
Stored down inside here.
Yeah,
Down in the circuit board down inside there in the gut.
onboard
So
process.
there's a processor behind that battery pack stuff.
Yeah, it's all lithium powered, and it's AA lithiums. We see 2+ years of life out of them, so it's really good. You can build that battery replacement into your regular maintenance interval. For life pumps, obviously they're not in the villages to fix the pumps. They do go to check on them. They're in the villages anyway for ministry purposes, and they can build in replacement into their schedule, keep the unit working.
That's great. Now, this is only one of the monitors that you have, right?
It's one of about 7 models. Yeah. This one, we've shipped around 300, and we've got 67 going out probably before the end of next week. And then we've actually shipped more of the monitors for solar powered systems. So that would be like a flow meter pulse output monitor, giving you the actual volume of water pumped. And then it can also measure chlorine or pH. Really, any 4 to 20 milliamp current sensor can be inserted and monitored, measured.
So you can do that with just this little unit right here?
Not this particular one. That's another style that would go in a larger enclosure like this.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
So we've sent out about 800 of these.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So where are some places that these pumps would be used? I mean, you mentioned like dangerous places, but
Yeah.
where do we have these installed?
These life pumps are in East Africa and also Guatemala in Central America.
Like Malawi, Central African Republic, Kenya,
Zambia, yeah.
and Haiti. Guatemala.
Do you have any stories of any of these groups?
Oh yes, yes. There's a lot of stories. Just it's incredible what clean water and the provision of clean water allows to happen in a community.
Okay.
When you see women and girls that walk, huh, sometimes 30 minutes one way, sometimes a couple of hours one way. I mean kilometers, and they're having to do this often twice or more a day. And the kids, the girls it's all women or girls usually. That 99% of the men just don't do that type of work. And so the girls will have to leave school early to go collect water. They'll have to arrive at school late to collect water. We heard a story in Haiti about a lady who she was able to go to church now because of the proximity of the pump. It's clean water. It's close by. She's able to get up early enough to get water for her family, for four or five children, then get to church. I mean,
Yeah.
There's another one we heard they installed a pump at a school. So now the kids don't have to go down to the river and get eaten by crocodiles. That makes the parents very happy.
yeah,
I would hope. God.
yeah, that was wild. They told us that the week before they were there, the visitors at that time, the week before, a child had lost an arm down by the river. I mean, this isn't a joke. This is serious stuff.
We
Yeah,
don't have any concept of what that's really like.
no,
do we?
no. It's solving a problem that is very real, very broad, and it really makes water accessibility so much easier. But even in the hands of a gospel focused partner,
Mhm.
the
So what does
folks
that mean,
can-
a gospel focused
yeah.
partner?
Well, our mandate at SonSet is that we'll work with gospel focused entities. That we won't work with purely secular, purely humanitarian groups. We have that mandate from our board of directors. And so what it means is that the groups that we work with, we know have a gospel presence on the ground in these communities. They're interested in the spiritual well-being of these people, and they're doing some sort of discipleship, church planting, evangelism work. And it's not just a tacked on part of their ministry. No, it's foundational to what they do in those places. So those are the groups that we want to get this technology into their hands so they can be made more effective in doing that gospel work.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, we
Thanks.
appreciate it. This is
Thank you.
great. This has been an expanding ministry over the last few years. How long have we been in the water monitoring?
I think we started in 2012,
Wow.
actually, with the development of this gearbox. So
Mhm.
we were influential in designing the gearbox for the group that designed the pump.
Mhm.
And then the monitoring came along after that. So we're, maybe 10
About
years.
10
in.
years.
Yeah.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's great. All right,
Yeah. Thanks,
thank you.
guys.
We're gonna head this
Cool.
direction. Walk past Jeff here, and we're gonna show you a little bit here of an area that we call Power Solutions. Mike Tapia, our Power Solutions team leader, is not with us in the building. He's going to be doing a presentation for you on Zoom right there. But I would just want to highlight a couple of pieces of equipment here. This is what we call a power protection unit. This can sit on the power lines, the incoming power lines of the power grid, and will shut off the power if it goes bad, if you get over voltages or under voltages or even spikes coming down the line. Shut off the power before to your transmitter or something else before it actually damages your transmitter. And then we took the smarts out of this, the monitoring out of this, and we developed this little unit. It's basically just a little circuit board here, and this can also sit on the power line and just monitor the state of the power, how it's doing, and then it can transmit that data back to us, and then we can actually analyze the power situation of a partner that's out there. Of course, in order to test how these units function against bad power, we had to actually create something that took good power here in the United States and made bad power out of it. So we sometimes call this our equipment torture rack because it puts that equipment, even our transmitters, through through paces that it might see in a developing world power system or power line system. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike and let him now tell you a little bit about Power Solutions.
Excellent. Thank you, Doug. Can you guys hear me well? Hopefully you can hear me. Okay, I saw some thumbs up. So I'm joining you guys here from New Jersey. I'm actually not there in Elkhart, but grateful to be here with you. As Doug said, I'm the team leader for our Power Solutions team, and this is an aspect of our ministry that we've been focusing on because it's a big problem that these Christian ministries are facing in a lot of countries that their electricity is unstable. They run into problems with their power supply, and especially these Christian radio stations we're working with. They run into these issues, and as the emphasis has been stated, we are functioning as a ministry that we seek to help provide technology-based solutions to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we know that Christian radio is an amazing tool to get this hope of the gospel out. And one of the issues that faces a lot of these stations is unreliable power. I like to actually think of one recent example we just recently ran into within the last few months. There's a radio station in Haiti, and Haiti right now is a country that is facing a lot of turmoil. There's lots of challenges. I'm not sure if you guys have heard things in the news and followed some of the recent things that have been going on. There was an earthquake back in the fall of last year. Gang violence, a lot of control of these gang groups. But there's a Christian radio station in Haiti, Radio Lumiere, and they are Lumiere meaning light, right? They're a light in their community, in this dark place of Haiti right now, where people are in need of the hope of Jesus Christ, right? We believe so centrally that Christ is our source of hope, that he came and he died on the cross for our sins and rose again from the dead, and that we can have a restored relationship with God. And this message is so important, and the people of Haiti are in so much need of this message. But here we go, we got this Christian radio station putting over their radio waves a message of hope in Jesus Christ, and electric power steps in and actually destroys one of their power transformers and brings their station off the air. And one of their technicians actually ends up reaching out to Leon, and Leon is able to help work through some of these issues along with some additional engineers and get their station back on the air. And so this is the kind of things that our Power Solutions team wants to be able to help ministries with. These challenges, offering our technical expertise to understand what they're going through and help them operate effectively in the environments that they're in, these challenging environments. So I'm going to share with you a slide here of an interesting tool that we recently have been developing, and I think it's as a technical group, you guys might be interested in this. So let's see if I can get my screen share working. So right now you should be seeing my screen, and Doug Weber had actually mentioned it briefly, our power quality monitor, and he showed you it on the wall there, and it's that little box, and he opened it up. But this power quality monitor is a way that we're able to actually record and monitor what's going on at a ministry site remotely. And one of the ways I like to think of this as an amazing tool is an analogy to, let's say, a doctor. And a doctor is analyzing a patient, and he's looking at their symptoms. And as he looks at the symptoms, he's able to develop a diagnosis and then come up with a treatment plan for this patient specifically. And I kind of like to view power quality in a similar light, because power quality has various symptoms that you could observe and record and identify, and then you could come up with a diagnosis of what this location is being plagued by and a treatment plan of how do we help this location overcome some of these specific challenges they're facing. And so power quality monitoring kind of plays into that role. So as our team here of engineers have been able to develop this tool to monitor a ministry's power remotely. And it's a fairly complicated tool. What it is composed of, the system as we have right here is able to monitor a three-phase distribution, three-phase voltages and currents. And you can see here in this picture, just kind of a CAD model of our design, where you got your voltage pickoffs, and you're able to pick off the three-phase lines, and then also clamp these clampable current split core current transformers on the lines and monitor the current of the load. It's running right now off a wired internet connection, and actually stores data also locally on an SD card in case the internet goes down. So it kind of is able to really record all of that data. And some of the interesting pieces of data that it's recording is the RMS voltages. So it's recording RMS voltage, RMS current. It's actually recording peak voltage and peak current. It's recording frequency, power factor, and the total energy consumption. So it's got a whole smorgasbord of measurements that are helping our engineers to be able to diagnose a situation that is occurring at their site. So this data is actually all sent over the internet to a database, and then we're able to sign into a dashboard remotely and visualize that data. So you actually see some of the graphs that I pulled off of our dashboard where we're monitoring three-phase voltage and current. So this is an interesting tool. Right now, we're kind of in our prototyping stage. We do have 2 units deployed at this moment where we're monitoring a location, a ministry location in the Asia Pacific region. And we're looking right now with the several ministries where we'll be able to assist them with this monitoring tool. So that's some of the aspects that we've been exploring within the area of power solutions. And Harold Shira is also going to join in now and share another very fascinating area of power solutions that we've been assisting ministries with.
All right, so we're back here in the manufacturing area. We got one more technology we want to talk to you about. Now, I need to let you know that our mission statement here is that SonSet Solutions provides technology-based solutions to advance the gospel worldwide. Now, not all of those technology solutions are necessarily high tech. We have some low tech solutions as well. Our main focus is, if you got a problem, tell us. We'll see if we can come up with a technology that will help you solve that problem. So this is one of those low tech solutions that we've developed, and I'm going to introduce you here to Harold Shira. And Harold, what is all this stuff on this table here?
Hello, Doug. Well, yes, I'm glad you said what you did about low tech. This is the extreme opposite end. You were seeing the high tech over here a moment ago, and this is the opposite end, very low tech. This little box I've got here is a little interconnection box that we have designed to make it possible for people who know nothing about electronics to hook up a solar panel, a battery, a light, or whatever they need here to use solar panel. You know, most people out there have no idea how to do this. They go, oh, we just plug it in. Well, that doesn't work. This little box has a charge controller on it and connections on it where a battery can be connected here, color coded, so hopefully they will not plug it in wrong. Different color code over here for plugging in the lamp and so on. And then connections out here if you want to plug in an amplifier or something else. So this is a device intended for people who know nothing about technology. So you can just plug things up. Let's see if it actually works. We plug the battery in here just like this. And we have a light here. Obviously, I've got a cable coiled up here. That would be longer, so you can put the light wherever you need it. And we plug it in here. And all we have to do is turn it on. Whoa,
Oh, yeah.
kind of bright, isn't it, Doug? In fact, we have a situation here, some pictures here actually of low-tech churches that we deal with. This is one of the actual churches over in Africa that have used our equipment here. And you see how they have put one of these little 10-watt lights in the sanctuary there, and the difference it makes at night in the lower picture there. And 10 watts to us here in America sounds like no more significant light at all. But this little light right here is a 10-watt light, and it puts out a lot of light.
Yeah, that's great.
This battery's solar powered system will run that for many hours. Well, the idea here is not only simplicity, but it's to give flexibility. Some people may want an amplifier here where they can have a little PA system in their church, microphone if they want it.
So you could use this stuff right here, and you could actually have a small amplification system for
Well, that's
for
correct.
the pastor.
See, we can just plug that rascal in here and the amplifier. In fact, this is a little radio on there too. Tuck that, Doug, and just push the on button there and see what happens. Now push the mode button. Did it come up there?
Did not. There it is.
There it is. There we go.
Oh,
The local radio station coming in. Well, that is all. Okay, turn it off, please.
I can't get it to
Yeah. That also is a media player. You can plug an SD card into this or plug your thumb drive into it and play audio messages through the PA system
Oh,
here.
that's great.
So that can be used, you see, in a church like we just showed you here, something very remote that they have no other electricity available.
Wow.
At night, they couldn't have
So
services before.
it's a solar powered PA system that you could include along with the light.
If you want it, that's correct. And then this is a little solar powered projector. Yeah, again, you can
That's a
plug.
projector?
That's a projector. You can plug your SD card in here and play videos. You can play the Jesus film, for example, here and project it up on the wall. Or in cases like that, the church you just saw there, they could hang a sheet up there to anything basically white or simple and use that as a projection screen.
Wow.
So the idea here is to give people a choice. They don't have to know anything about electronics. Buy what you need. It's very inexpensive, intentionally so, not high tech at all. Strange as it may seem, people in remote countries all over Africa have cell phones readily available.
Yeah, we hear that all the time. People live in very remote places. They tell us they don't have any electricity. They don't have any cell phone coverage, but everybody has a smartphone. I can't figure that out.
No, and they're all wondering, how do I charge a smartphone?
Right.
Well, okay, we have an answer here. They could plug in 2 smartphones right here if they wanted, or they can plug this device in and charge up to 8 phones at a time. So this is a simple little DC-DC converter. Actually, we're converting the DC 12 volts here from the battery into the 5 volts that the phones need for charging.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
you can't get lower tech than we've got here
No.
in some sense.
True.
I mean, the lowest tech items that we make is this little interconnection box, which
Right.
we call a solar media center, because it's a center where these other things get plugged in.
Now you've got one other little device sitting down here.
Yeah,
What is
I'm
that?
glad you mentioned that, Doug. This is a little device that's a Wi-Fi simulator. We mentioned people have phones. Well, they don't have internet connections frequently. This does not provide an internet connection, but it simulates one. So the pastor of the church, for example, can put whatever media he wants on here. He could put the Jesus film on here. He could put audio copies of his sermons or whatever, books and whatever.
Mm.
And people with cell phones within 50 or 100 feet of this device can log on to this device and pick up these messages and put them on their phones and take them home with them and listen to them. So they can come to church, and while they're having the service, they can connect their phones up here and be charging them. And they can also take the audio visual information with them at home.
So you could even put an audio Bible on there, probably.
Oh,
right?
yes, yes.
And then they can put it on their phone and
That's right.
listen to the Bible. Wow.
And we're talking about in whatever language the people speaks. Obviously, it's not English in most places.
Right.
So they can put the material in their own language there.
Yeah. So Mike Tapia, who we just heard from, was recently over in Uganda and installed one of these systems in a church.
Right.
And he was telling us a story. I just wrote up his story about this. He told us about a story of while they were installing this media center in this church, this little boy, he said he was probably about 4 years old, walks up to him and just is holding out his cell phone. Now the boy didn't speak English and Mike didn't speak his language. So Mike was a little puzzled, what he was supposed to do with that cell phone. But he decided, he took the cell phone and he connected it to that Wi-Fi hotspot. And they had the Jesus film on that Wi-Fi hotspot in the boy's own language. So he got that streaming on the cell phone, and that boy walked out of the church just content to be watching the Jesus film.
Yeah, that Jesus film is 2 hours long.
Yeah.
Only took him a few minutes to download it. You can watch it now at home.
That's right. Yeah. So this is low tech, but it really helps to solve a problem that we have or that our partners have. And so we're able to help them with a variety of ways. Some people just use the light. Some people just use the cell phone charger, and that draws people. Some people are now using the PA system. So there's just different things that people can use. And this would be, we were finding really just this year that these rural churches that have no electricity are a big market for these, or becoming a big market for these, because they need the solar power, and then we can provide a lot of media options for them in their church.
And the fact that maybe they can find a solar panel and a battery there in country
Right,
doesn't solve their problem.
right.
They don't have other things to hook
Yeah,
up
yeah.
to it, and they need someone who knows something about electronics in that case.
That's great.
In this case, they don't need any of that. Just plug it up.
That's great. All
Well,
right.
Thank you for stopping by, though.
Well, thanks,
Glad
Harold.
to
Thanks
talk
for
to you.
explaining all of that for us.
You're
That was
welcome.
great. So I'm gonna just turn it back over to Trevor and let him talk to you a little bit about his time here and what he has experienced, and then we'll go to a question and answer period.
All right. Well, so I've been here for training. I came in. Today's my last day. Actually, I've been here for 3 months now. I'm becoming a radio planter with Reach Beyond, and so I'll be working with a lot of these transmitters and antennas. I'll be doing FM stuff overseas, and so in my time here, I've been learning about how to repair that equipment, how it works better, how to repair it, and it's been really cool. They didn't really say it, but Mike Axman, the guy that did the shortwave stuff, actually designed a lot of this stuff. And so like one day I was working on one of the FM transmitters and like, why did they do this? And I just, was just commenting to myself out loud, and he happened to be walking by. I was like, oh, well, I did that because of, I don't remember what he said, but just, I've never had that question answered before. So it's really unique to be working with the people that actually made these things. Most of my time I was with Alan. He's an excellent troubleshooter. He was the guy that did the FM stuff. And yeah, so when I came in, I've always just replaced whole boards, figured out what board was bad and tossed it and put in a new one. And now I know about how to troubleshoot individual components like diodes and resistors, capacitors, figure out what that problem is and fix that instead. So a lot less wasteful. So it's been a really cool experience here. Not a lot of places you can learn that anymore, and I've been really privileged to be here. And with that, that's about what I've got. So open it up for questions.
Okay, well, thank you for everyone that participated. Thank you for all those who joined. A reminder, if you haven't already sent your attendance information to the chapter leaders, please do so by the end of the meeting. And for those of you who need to leave now, we thank you for your attendance. And if you'd like to hang on for a little while, we've got a few minutes yet that we will have some time for question and answers. Some of our personnel here from SonSet Solutions are gathering together in a conference room, and we'll be glad to answer your questions. Indicate, wave your hand or something, or there's a raise hand at the bottom of the screen that I can unmute you if you aren't able to unmute yourself. And so again, those of you that have to go, thank you for attending, and have a good day. The rest of you will hang around here for a few minutes of questions.
It's Mark Persons here. Question, I remember listening to HCJB as a pre-teen, by the way, and of course they went away, I don't know, was it 20 years ago? Can you give us a brief story of HCJB, Quito, Ecuador, with the religious broadcasting?
Well, a brief story. How many stories do you want? I worked down there. Actually, we have a number of our engineers here that work down there. My family and I were in Quito for 21 years. I did studio design for a while, and then went out to the transmitter site to PFO and worked on the big shortwave transmitters we had out there as well. So it was an amazing place. Just as you walked on to that transmitter site, just knowing that all those radio signals were out there going around the world, you knew that these antennas were for the Americas and those antennas were for Europe, and it was just an exciting place to be. And it was one of the interesting things was when in the early 90s, when the Iron Curtain came down, one of the things that the Russian broadcast service had been doing for years was they were reading their Bibles. So one of the programs was just a Bible reading program that they did very slowly in the Russian language. And so then when some of our leaders from HCJB got to Russia and began to travel around and visit some of the churches, people would walk up to them and show them these handwritten Bibles that they copied off the air. So that was just amazing to think about that, and we didn't get letters. We didn't get a lot of letters from Russia during that time period. And so it was oftentimes difficult to know what impact we actually were having there in the country or not. But it was just amazing to see that. And that's how actually we got started in the local broadcasting then as well, because at that same time, then people began coming to us from the former Soviet bloc countries saying, hey, we've been listening to you guys for years, for decades on shortwave. We now have the ability to get our own frequencies and start our own radio stations. And we see the power of radio, but we know nothing about radio. How do we get started? What do we do? What equipment do we need? And that's how really we got started in local radio.
Do I remember one of the options was to send the signal to the northeast or northwest to reach Russia, but oh no, you did it the hard way. Right over the top of the North Pole.
Yeah, sometimes, yep. For some of the areas, we had to go straight over the North Pole. For some of the areas, it was interesting. We also broadcast to Japan, so in shortwave, you have to go with great circles, right? And so, using a great circle map, we had this map that I used a lot in Quito, where Quito was the center of the world. And we all thought it was the center of the world anyway. But and so then you have this great circle map. So then you have to figure out, well, where's Japan? Did you know Japan from Quito is right up the west coast? So you went right up the west coast of the United States and down to Japan. And that's how we got to Japan too. So
One thing some of you may have heard already or know that about this facility that we are in today. And in fact, the assembly area where you saw the water monitoring and everything was a location where some of the huge 100,000 watt transmitters that were used around the world were manufactured right here in this building under the HCJB name before we became SonSet Solutions. So those large transmitters, we've got a few parts for them around yet. And there's, I believe 9 of them still in service, something like that.
There were 9 built originally and 7 of them are still in service. Yeah, we've cannibalized 2 of them to keep the other 7 going because some of the parts are obsolete. Those were built in the 90s.
So what kind of power levels were you running at HCJB?
So the most powerful one we had was a 500 kilowatt, and that was actually built here as well, but in the early, I guess the mid 70s. And that got delivered to Quito in 1980 and was put on the air. And that transmitter actually operated all the way up until about 2009 when we shut down the shortwave facility there in Ecuador. So then the group kind of disbanded in 1980, the engineering team, and then HCJB called them all back or called another set of engineers together in 1986 to build these 900 kilowatt shortwave transmitters.
So what kind of power, how do you find enough power to run a 0.5 megawatt transmitter? It's got to consume about 1 megawatt of power.
Yeah, it probably did it. Part of it was a fairly efficient transmitter, because one of the innovations in that transmitter was that we could, using servos, we could actually adjust the capacitors and the inductors on the fly. So it would monitor itself, it would monitor its output, and it would actually adjust everything in order to maximize the output of the transmitter. So it was actually a fairly efficient transmitter, but it did take a lot of power.
Also, they did have their own power plant.
We did have a power plant that helped power all those transmitters, because we had over 1 million watts of transmitting power in that facility with all the transmitters. Because we had like 10 transmitters, shortwave transmitters down there, different varying powers.
This is Rick Neves. I'm at the University of Notre Dame, and I've been to a few
SBE meetings when the HCJB transmitters were being assembled at the facility. And I just want to say that I really like the way that you did the meeting today. This virtual, great. I could actually hear everything everybody said, and I can see what you wanted me to see. So thank you for putting this on.
Thank you, Rick, for the feedback. This is sort of an experiment, especially with the joint meeting between chapter 17 and chapter 30. So a few little glitches here and there, but glad for the feedback. Anyone else have some questions in before we close?
Rick, I'll just encourage you that we do in-person tours as well. So if you ever want to, come over, get a tour yourself or bring some students over. I don't know what you do at Notre Dame, but we actually host, every year we host a freshman engineering class from Bethel University here, and just kind of inspire them about what we're doing with the technology too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in the audiovisual department, basically, so you can think of it that way. I was also interested in the remote pump monitoring. Our church is a Methodist church, and one of the things that we do is raise money for wells to be put in Burkina Faso in Africa. And I don't know any of the technical details, but I just thought it was great that you guys have come up with this way to do remote well monitoring and can remotely monitor the power. So you can see what happens that way. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and see, it would be so I've been to Burkina Faso, and we have a large radio partner in Burkina Faso as well. And so I know that up in the northern part of the country there, it's pretty dangerous right now, militant groups that are coming down into the country. And so that would be an ideal place for a pump monitor.
Okay, I noticed there are a couple chat questions here I wanted to address before we quit. Looks like maybe two of them from Taylor. A question about if we're partnering with anyone in Ukraine. And as you know, it's difficult to send things into the route of Ukraine, but we do have some partners in surrounding countries that have given us inquiries, and we're getting ready to send some products. We can't give a lot of details, but that is in process. Also, a question about the battery life. I think that maybe relates to our SonSet radio. And as I mentioned, we get about 2 hours of use out of every hour charge. So if it's in sunlight for 4 hours, it will play another 8 hours. So, and it will play while it's charging. In fact, a lot of people work in the fields with the radio hung around their neck and let it play all day long. And then in the evening, yet when they go back to their huts or whatever, it can still play. So hope that answers the question.
How many charge cycles do you get out of it? How many years does a radio usually last?
I personally know of some of the SonSet radios, some of the early models in Haiti that are still going today, and that's been more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Typically, it measures more about how deeply discharged the batteries go and things like that. But we would expect probably an average of 5 years life on the batteries. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well,
Yeah. Oh, I have a question for Trevor. So are you moving back to Minnesota, or what's your plans?
I'll be passing through, if you can even call it that. On Memorial Day, I start cultural and language training out in Colorado. And so as part of that, or on my way out, I do stop in the Twin Cities for like 2 days next week to see the doctor and renew my license and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm pretty much done living in Minnesota for a while.
okay. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Well, again, thank you on behalf of SonSet Solutions and SBE Chapter 30 and Chapter 17. And we wish you all a good day. We did turn on the recording on this, and if it turns out, we will try to make a link, post it somewhere where it's available, distribute that through your chapter officers. So thank you. Have a good day.